Okay, there we go. So, leading up to this event, I had several people tell me that I'm brave for agreeing to come to Berkeley after, what's happened the last several times, for standing up to Antifa, and for speaking my beliefs. I nodded my head, silent, on the inside thinking, if you only knew how wrong you are. Because, to be honest, I am a little bit afraid to be here. Of the threats of violence posed by Antifa, of the repercussions for publicly speaking my beliefs, and even a little bit of public speaking. So, when initially I was asked to speak at this event, I declined. And when I finally did say yes, I thought about backing out 2 or 3 times. Pretty lame, I know. So why then did I show up? Basically, I showed up because I decided that in the grand scheme of things, the freedom for society to speak what it believes is infinitely more important than my personal fears. Yeah. So at this point, most of us understand why freedom of speech is important, and those who have had their First Amendment rights directly infringed upon likely understand this importance even more so. Most of us understand that in many cases, freedom of speech is what allows the truth to surface. It's what allows a society to progress in the sense that it creates an environment that is welcoming of new ideas and inventions. It's also a safeguard against abuse of power, the formation of totalitarian regimes, etc. Unfortunately, though, whether we want to admit it or not, our country, which was founded upon the premise of freedom, is incrementally seeing its right to freedom of speech stripped away. Many tactics are being used: hate speech, fake news, etc. And in some ways, many of us are just allowing it to happen. People have their reasons. Some have families to feed and don't want to risk losing their jobs, which is entirely understandable. Others are afraid of being called racist, sexist, bigot, and socially ostracized, which at least to an extent is also understandable. I refrained from speaking out myself for quite some time due to this reason. In my own case, I had to surrender any hope of garnering a place in the leftist-controlled writing industry on the day that I decided to publish a video about why I was voting for Donald Trump. For about 10 years, my twin sister and I, we studied writing and planned out a 7-book science fiction fantasy series called Hatred Day, with the hope of one day being traditionally successful published authors. During this time, we traveled all around the United States, attending writing conventions. We met literary agents, befriended prominent book reviewers, and New York Times best-selling authors.
Keep going.
It was a lot of work, and it took many years to gain a foothold in the industry, but over the course of just a few days after publishing our pro-Trump video, we had to watch that dream slip away, essentially. People unfollowed us on Twitter, unfriended us on Facebook. A writer friend called me a Nazi over Twitter. One of my relatives cut ties with me. And even my old editor, who I'd been friends with for many years, she told me that as a woman, she was shocked that I was voting for Donald Trump, and then blocked me on Facebook. I mean, it did hurt a little bit, but really just a little. Because I very quickly came to realize that it doesn't matter. What does it matter being traditionally published, accepted by the writing industry and thousands of teenage readers, if I can't even write what I want to write? Nothing. I was also called a white nationalist, which I'm not, by Judd Legume, the founder of Think Progress, simply for standing up to the anti-white rhetoric that we're seeing peddled by the mainstream media on a daily basis. Judd Legume then went on to report a GoFundMe campaign that I had launched for $400, in order to purchase equipment for a podcast revolving around traditional values called Virtue of the West, which I had planned to launch and have since launched. Within 1 hour, my GoFundMe campaign was deleted, all the money was refunded, and I was banned permanently from using the platform. When reached out to for a comment, the GoFundMe spokesperson said that my campaign violated the terms of service. It was regarded as hate speech and discrimination. In other words, the propagation of traditional values is now regarded as hate speech and discrimination in the eyes of the left. How did we get here? I mean, I don't know, but after seeing the depths that the left will go to silence us, even going so far as to attack our livelihoods, it's going to take a hell of a lot more than calling me racist or some other slur to make me back down. Thank you. So, in addition to those who choose not to speak out for fear of the left's defamatory labels, we also have those who choose not to speak out as the ever-increasing limitations upon freedom of speech do not affect them directly, at least not yet. But what happens when they do? By then, it just might be too late. And even if they never affect you directly, what about those you love? Your family and friends? For those who plan on getting married, what about your spouses? For those who plan on having a family or already have a family, what about your children? Will you not take a little bit of heat for their sakes, for their ability to take on your beliefs and to speak them publicly without fear of persecution? We can no longer look at the war against free speech through a personal lens. We must look at it through a societal lens. Because what we do now in defense of free speech will be done for all of America in general, for the common good. It's for a purpose and for a goal greater than ourselves. And
Give her a round of applause.
So in accepting this role, in accepting all the repercussions that come along with it, you will undoubtedly inspire another. And that person that you inspired will also go on to inspire another. You are likely already inspiring other people simply for showing up here today. In the face of threats of physical violence, you're still here. And that means something. On that note, as long as we claim to be supporters and defenders of free speech, we must practice what we preach. We must allow all freedom of speech, even that which the left would define as extreme, which, let's be honest, they define most things as extreme. Some might argue that this is dangerous, but I would argue that allowing all beliefs to be spoken, even that which some might define as extreme, it gives people the opportunity to challenge those beliefs, and in some cases to prove them wrong. It also gives people the opportunity to defend their personal beliefs and to solidify confidence that what they believe to be true is in fact true. Our beliefs should be able to stand up to the starkest of criticism, otherwise they're likely not very good beliefs. Censorship has become the tool of the left. Let's not follow in their footsteps. For those of you listening to this speech who don't agree with the points that I've made, who approve of censorship, and who would prefer to criminalize wrongthink, I have a question for you. We all know that the world never stays the same, at least not for long. We all know that the world is constantly changing, adapting, progressing, or regressing. So my question to you is, what happens when the politically correct narrative which you currently find yourself so comfortable in changes? What happens when the narrative turns against you? What will you do then? Believe it or not, I do understand what it's like to want to fit in. I understand the desire to embrace socially acceptable ideas in order to be successful, or even just to make life a little bit easier. Because nobody wants to be an outcast. Nobody wants to wear the label of racist, sexist, or bigot, whether it's true or not. And most of all, nobody wants to lose the respect of their family, friends, and peers. But I'm telling you now that in reality, a socially accepted status, it holds no true value. I'm telling you now that choosing to remain silent out of a desire for human respect and approval could cause harm not only to you, but to others, and ultimately to our country. Because with how bad things have gotten in America, we now only have two choices. We can fight to reassert our freedoms, or we can allow ourselves to become enslaved. We all need to make this choice. The time's past when we can allow ourselves to be controlled by fear, when we can allow others to take a stand, when we can allow others to speak what we can only silently think about. We're either for a free America or we're against a free America. Unfortunately, there is no middle ground. Thank you.
USA! 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 USA!
Everyone, let's reconvene. Let's not give them the attention that they so badly want. Coming up next, we have the president of Pink Pistols.